What you're trying to do is you're standing here and you're trying to make me say that somehow we're going to put non-citizens over Americans. Quit it. Stop it. This is the kind of journalism we don't need.
No, I'm just
You're divisive. No, you're not. You're being divisive. No, please. You don't need to ask that question. You're just trying to get controversy here. You're not going to get it from me. We want to save health care for all people.
Pam Bondi sends a memo unleashing her prosecutors to respond to these attacks on federal officers at various locations around the country. We see that she posted this, releasing what she shared with the entire DOJ apparatus. You can see this is a memo that came out September 29th, Office of the Attorney General, going out to the FBI, Director of the FBI, Director ATF, Director U.S. Marshal Service, Administrator DEA, and the Director of the Executive Office of the U.S. Attorneys. Everybody, Cash and the rest of them, getting on notice and responding or having to field this message from Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. She writes this. All right, everybody, pay attention. As President Trump stated, we are witnessing a new era of extreme political violence that is, quote, a culmination of sophisticated, organized campaigns of targeted intimidation, radicalization, threats, and violence designed to silence opposing speech, limit political activity, change or direct policy outcomes, and prevent the functioning of a democratic society. Footnote 1, citing the White House presidential action. Now, domestic terrorists, in case we forgot, have firebombed Tesla vehicles and dealerships. Would-be assassins have tried to murder President Trump twice and tried to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Assassins in Minnesota have gunned down lawmakers and Catholic school children in 2 separate incidents. And just a few weeks ago, an assassin murdered Charlie Kirk in cold blood, saying riots in LA and Portland reflect a more than 1,000% increase in attacks on U.S. immigration and customs officers since January 21, 25, compared to the same time last year. 1,000%. Last week, a sniper opened fire from a nearby rooftop on an ICE Dallas field office, leaving 1 dead and 2 others critically wounded. This past weekend, while Illinois Governor PB&J Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, we know him from Chicago, while they were taking a break from their donuts, instead they were villainizing ICE agents as Nazis, they call them, and secret police. More than 200 rioters blocked access to one of the gates in front of an ICE processing facility in the Chicago area, chanting, "Arrest ICE." They were screaming, "Shoot ICE," and attempting to forcibly and illegally trespass on federal property, which sounds like an insurrection to us. At least 1 rioter was arrested with a firearm, saying rioters will arrive with boxes of fireworks, N95 masks, gas masks, goggles, knee and elbow protection, and large quantities of food and water to support their insurrectionary efforts. So likewise, rioters in Portland, Oregon have repeatedly attacked and laid siege to an ICE processing center. These rioters have been well organized and they appear to be well funded. Enough is enough, says Pam Bondi. The DOJ will stand strong when federal law enforcement officers are attacked or threatened for doing their sworn duty on behalf of the U.S. government. Pam writes, I am directing the Bureau of ATF, the U.S. Marshals, the DEA, and the FBI, that's you, Cash, to immediately direct all necessary officers and agents to defend ICE facilities and personnel whenever and wherever they come under attack, including in Portland and Chicago. Our officers will suppress all unlawful rioting and arrest every person we will see suspected of threatening or assaulting a federal law enforcement officer or interfering with federal law enforcement operations. I am further directing the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Districts of Oregon and the Northern District of Illinois to charge all such persons with the highest provable offense available under the law. Thank you, Pam. All state and local enforcement officers protecting ICE facilities and personnel are hereby added to a temporary ICE Protection Task Force alongside each of the department's law enforcement components. So this is a full stand-up. The U.S. Attorney's Office for each district shall, and if they don't want to, then this is going to be a problem, they can resign or be fired, shall prosecute any individual who assaults or forcibly impedes or intimidates these officers, who interferes with the performance of their official duties, or who attempts to do so, consistent with the law, of course. I further direct the DOJ's Office of Justice Programs and Community-Oriented Policing Service, COPS, isn't that fun, to provide as soon as possible, consistent with existing authority, grant funding and training and technical assistance, and it's getting funded too. This support may include funding for the purchase of body-worn cameras and other equipment as deemed necessary, in conjunction ATF, DEA, FBI, and the U.S. Marshals. So Pam continues in her letter, that was only page 2. She writes the following. She says, the charging priorities directed by this memo are not limited to those criminals who are caught red-handed committing acts of violence in personnel. The president is exactly right. We must disband and uproot networks, entities, and organizations that promote organized violence, violent intimidation, conspiracies against rights, and other efforts to disrupt the functioning of a democratic society. The DOJ will arrest and prosecute to the fullest extent of the law every person who aids, abets, or conspires to commit these crimes. If you're purchasing the water bottles and dropping them off from Costco, indict that man. Whether through funding, coordination, planning, or other means, we're coming for you. Working together with our interagency partners, we will take back our country and make America safe again. Signed by Pam Bondi over from the DOJ. And we hope that there is some action behind those words from the Justice Department. Now, there's more. We also see that they are making some arrests. The FBI rounded up these folks, saying FBI Portland and our partners at Homeland and Seattle Homeland, they searched a residence associated with a subject who is alleged to have aimed a laser at a CBP helicopter that's conducting law enforcement activity in the skies over Portland. There was another aircraft in the area. They're beaming him at them too. And that homeless dude in DC was beaming him at Trump's Marine One while he was on Marine One. We covered that story. FBI Portland said agents made contact with the subject as well as 3 other inhabitants who were at the residence. And I know, hold on to your hats for this one, but guess what? Check this one out. All 4 suspects are in the U.S. illegally and were placed into the custody of ERO Seattle personnel. I know, shocking. I know, can't believe it. The laser that was used was acquired during the course of the investigation. The federal government will not tolerate violence against federal officers, nor will we tolerate assaults on personnel, commercial, or government aircraft, okay? They're attacking in the skies now. Illegals. So we also saw that Pam Bondi released that memo. We had more reporting here. Bill Malugin says, yeah, they made contact with the suspect, found 3 others at the residence. Now all of them are being deported. We don't know if they were all shining the laser, but their amigo was. And so they're now paying the price. Now, somebody who is a big fan of illegal aliens and wants to pay for everything for them, who is very upset that Democrats are going to shut down the government, is out talking with this woman over from Real Lindell TV, who did a great interview with Maxine Waters. Here's what this one sounded like.
Do Democrats want to prioritize the health care of illegal aliens over a government shutdown? Because if the government does shut down, American
Excuse
employees are going
me,
to be furloughed.
stop it right there.
Whoa.
We're not prioritizing. What we're doing is saying simply we want to keep the government open and we want to work with the Republicans and have a bipartisan agreement to keep this government open, and health care is at the top of our agenda.
But aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. We want to save lives. We want to make sure that health care is available to those who
Illegals
would die, but having the help of their government.
So you're good with the government shutdown, even if it means giving health care to people who aren't American citizens?
Well,
Yes.
that's what you're pushing on. What you're trying to do is you're standing here and you're trying to make me say that somehow we're going to put non-citizens over Americans. Quit it. Stop it. This is the kind of journalism we don't need.
No, I'm just
You're
asking
divisive.
questions.
No, you're not.
Yeah, no, that's
You're being
what-
divisive. No,
No,
please.
I'm not.
You don't need to ask that question. You're just trying to get controversy here. You're not going to get it from me. We want to save health care for all people. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Right. So Maxine Waters doesn't like that question. Shout out to that reporter. And we have a good explanation for that, because you're going to hear this talking point as this shutdown comes to a careening close. The timeline just ticking away and not looking like we're going to get a solution on this anytime soon. But here was John Thune pushing back on this ridiculous claim. They always come out and they say, it's illegal for illegals to get health care. You're like, well, who's paying for it? Are they paying for all the health care? Where's the money coming from? Obviously, it's coming from somewhere, and money is very difficult to follow, especially when you're Democrats individuals, because they just pass it around between all their shell companies before it ends up in Hunter Biden's crack fund. But here is the conversation. John Thune was out today explaining how this actually works. They just fund different things and move the money around to go to the illegals.
Good to have you on this morning. When did you get to that spot there? Did you hear Leader Jeffries? We just had an interview with him that went back and forth a lot of the different contentious points. Were you able to hear any of that?
I did hear, yeah, he did hear a good amount of it, Joe.
You did? Can you clear up a couple of the contentious points? He says outright it's a Republican, he called it actually not just a talking point, a Republican lie, that there's any proposal put forth by Democrats to cover the health care of illegal aliens. What does that come from? Where's that difference? How do you reconcile what he says and what Republicans have been telling us?
Well, they repeal all the reforms that we made to Medicaid in the One Big Beautiful Bill, Joe. That's where that comes from. And there were a lot of federal dollars being used. The way they do it, in California is a good example. They use provider taxes. They tax their hospitals bills to get more revenue in so they can match it, because the expanded population in Medicaid has a 90% federal match. We call it 90% FMAP. And then they get more federal money, and then they use the other dollars. They're all fungible. They use those to cover illegal immigrants. So they do it, and there are lots of ways that they have maneuvered around that, but it is a fact, and they don't like that fact, but they are repealing all of that with their proposal, and so it's absolutely accurate to characterize it that way. And the other thing I would say, Joe, is it's $1.5 trillion in new spending hung on, attached to a 7-week continuing resolution to fund the government to keep the doors open. Do they have any less leverage 7 weeks from now? 7 weeks on November the 21st, they're going to have the same leverage then that they have today, but we will hopefully by then have passed more appropriations bills, which really is what this is all about. And then if they want to have a discussion about the premium tax credits, we're happy to have that.
Keep hearing from your side. It's just a continuing resolution on something Democrats already had agreed to. Leader Jeffries made a point that it was not something that Democrats agreed to. It was a partisan Republican bill that was passed, I guess he said, in March. So you shouldn't be surprised that we're not going to go for it this time.
Well, Democrat leaders in both the House and Senate Appropriations committees, and this is where this should be done, Joe, agreed on the November 21st date. So that's just not accurate. And by the way, this right here, this is the bill. It's 24 pages. It keeps the government open. This is a partisan bill? Find that hard to believe. This is a simple extension of government funding so that we can complete and finish the appropriations work, something that was never done when the Democrats had the majority of the United States Senate. So we're going to try and get approps bills done, and we can have that conversation about a premium tax credit solution, which I offered to them yesterday. But they are, and I'm going to tell you, just in the Senate at least, politically speaking, Chuck Schumer needs a Schumer shutdown. And I think that's what we're probably careening toward.
So we also saw that Trump was trolling the heck out of Hakeem with his sombrero and his mustache, which I thought looked pretty good. It looked pretty, festive of him. And if you've ever been to Mexico, it's hard to leave without having a sombrero on your head because they're just amazing hats. But here is what this lady said in response.
That's right. And then what does that shameful man do? After a meeting where you're supposed to be working out details, where you're supposed to be negotiating a deal, you post something that draws a sombrero and a mustache on the leader with whom you're supposed to be.
Yeah, he looks muy bonita. It's amazing. Increíble. So anyways, we appreciate the Democrats giving it their best attempt. They don't want to talk about their policies at all, so they'd rather just get in front of the cameras and screech and shout about sombreros and more. But here is what the president had to say today, speaking to the military.
Together with many of you in the room, we've brought back the fundamental principle that defending the homeland is the military's first and most important priority. That's what it is. Only in recent decades did politicians somehow come to believe that our job is to police the far reaches of Kenya and Somalia while America is under invasion from within. We're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out. These people don't have uniforms.
No, and many of them are teachers and doctors and lawyers and truck drivers, and probably fewer truck drivers, but there's a lot of people in there who are giddy and excited about more dead fascists, according to their own language. Pretty sick stuff out there. So we're happy to see Pam Bondi and the DOJ step it up. We're playing with people who are operating by a different set of morals, and the ends justify the means. They don't want to talk. They want to win, and they're not winning. So they're getting backed into a corner, and they're acting out, shooting people in the neck and attacking federal officers and shooting their own people, detainees, because they're incompetent to boot. But this is happening. Of course, we're happy to see where it goes, and Pam Bondi sent the memo. We'll see if the agencies receive.